Hello, dreamer. Welcome to the sleepy universe. Tonight, you will drift into the softest laws of nature, the ones that govern how things fade, how warmth slips away, how time forgets. This is the story of entropy, not as destruction, but as a gentle loosening of what once held tight. Close your eyes. Let the hush of the cosmos guide your breath. The universe is unwinding, and you are floating with it. You begin at the moment everything still holds together. Your body, your breath, the soft ticking rhythm of your thoughts. Inside you, order hums like a lullaby. Molecules know their place. Energy pulses in careful directions. Nothing feels out of place. But even now, in this quiet equilibrium, something begins to shift. Not suddenly, not loudly. It is the slowest kind of change, a gentle loosening, like threads slipping through fabric. This is entropy, and it begins not with noise, but with a sigh. You don't notice it at first, because entropy is not chaos, not disorder, not a violent tearing apart. It is softer than that. It is the universe letting go, breath by breath, moment by moment. The tea that cools, the warm room that fades to ambient chill, the heartbeat that once thundered, now slower, steadier, older. The universe has a preference, not for destruction, but for balance. Hot becomes warm, then cool. Sharp lines blur. Structures melt into backgrounds. With time, contrast fades, and all things slide towards sameness. You float in this knowledge, like a leaf drifting downstream, knowing the direction but not the speed. You feel the tug of the river, soft but sure, and you don't resist. You understand now that entropy is not the enemy of life, but its shadow following gently, never rushing, never stopping. The laws of thermodynamics whisper this to you. In a closed system, they say, entropy always increases. Left alone, everything grows more disordered. But disorder doesn't mean ruin. It means freedom. It means letting go of perfection. A sandcastle is intricate, precise, deliberate. But the beach it rests on, wild, unstructured, and ancient, is what endures. You begin to see this pattern everywhere. A candle flickers its flame, alive and structured, fights against the stillness of the room. But its wax melts, its scent fades, its shape collapses into the memory of light. Still, it was beautiful while it lasted. Entropy didn't steal that, it simply welcomed it home. You feel the warmth of your own skin, a system of stunning order, maintained with care, with food, with sleep, with breath. Your body resists entropy every moment it lives. Every heartbeat is an act of defiance. But even now, you are aware this resistance is temporary. Eventually, all systems rest, even the stars. You lift your mind to the sky, to the brilliance of galaxies, stars burning bright with fusion, forging elements in their cores. This too is order, hydrogen becoming helium, energy radiating outward in perfect form. But this fire consumes fuel. The stars do not last forever. They too succumb to entropy. One day, their cores cool. They collapse or scatter. Their light fades. Not instantly, but certainly. In the far future, when the last star burns out, when galaxies stop colliding, when black holes dissolve into the hum of background radiation, the universe will reach its quietest moment, maximum entropy. This is not an explosion. It's a hush, a stillness where everything is the same temperature, where nothing flows, nothing changes, because all gradients are gone. And yet, in this thought, you do not feel fear, you feel awe. You understand now that entropy is not a villain. It's the shape of time. It's what allows stories to begin and end. Without it, you couldn't have a memory, a heartbeat, a beginning, or a farewell. You need contrast to notice anything at all. And entropy is the soft force that gives time its direction. It is the arrow that only flies forward. You see it now in the wrinkles on a sleeping face, in the fading of chalk on a blackboard, in the soft disorganization of a once neat drawer. It is present in laughter, in sorrow, in growth. It does not choose sides. It simply moves. You might wonder, if entropy always rises, why is there still so much order? Why can life bloom, thoughts arrange, music form? The answer lies in energy, in the sun pouring low-entropy photons upon Earth, fueling your body's order. Life uses energy to carve out tiny islands of structure in a sea of disorder. But this comes at a cost. To create order locally, we increase entropy globally. We push against the tide, but we also add to it. In every act of building, cleaning, understanding, we generate more warmth, more dispersion, more forgetting. But we also make meaning. Entropy doesn't erase beauty. It just makes it precious. You lie still now, wrapped in the deep calm of this knowledge. The world around you, your room, your breath, your thoughts, is slowly letting go. But this letting go is not empty. It's full of echoes, of stories, of time well lived. Entropy does not erase the moment. It makes the moment possible. And in this moment, you are drifting, not downward, but outward. Not falling apart, but unfolding. You are part of the universe's great unspooling. You are the candle and the shadow, the heartbeat and the hush, the structure and the story that slowly unwinds from it. And as your breath slows, you feel time stretching around you, soft and spacious, like fabric warmed by the sun. It pulls gently. It does not rush. And somewhere deep within that drift, a question begins to form. If entropy always increases, if forgetting is inevitable, then how do stars remember how to shine? You hold a cup between your palms. It's warm, not hot, just warm enough to notice. The heat rises in small spirals, vanishing into the space around you. It doesn't rush, it doesn't fight. It simply drifts, surrendering itself to the wider air. This is the shape of entropy. Not a crash, not a storm, but a soft migration. Energy moving from where it gathers to where it's wanted less. Always outward, always toward evenness. In your cup, this story unfolds in silence. The tea grows cooler, not because it fails, but because the universe prefers sharing. And sharing heat means spreading it so thin that eventually there's none left to give. This same law touches everything that breathes, burns, or glows. A hot stone in the sun, a radiator in a winter room, a mother's palm on a child's brow. All warmth travels, all heat seeks balance. Energy does not vanish, it redistributes, until no one place is warmer than another, until there is no more story to tell. You close your eyes and imagine this, not just in your hands, but across the stars. The sun, so constant in your sky, is not eternal. It too burns, giving light, giving life, but at a cost. Every second, it pours out unimaginable amounts of energy in golden photons, in solar winds, in radiation that paints your planet blue and green. And that energy, once given, does not return. It is carried away, scattered into space, warming cold things just a little before it blends with everything else. Even the sun, in its fire, is cooling. Not today, not soon, but slowly, inevitably. One day, its fuel will run low, and it will change, expand, glow red, then release its outer layers in a quiet farewell. What remains will be a white dwarf, dense, faint, and fading, not with pain, but with peace. It will glow for billions more years, slowly cooling, until it becomes something colder than memory, a black dwarf, quiet as night. This is not a tragedy. This is the story of balance. The tea you sipped is not lost. Its heat moved. The sun's fire is not wasted. It becomes trees, oceans, breath, the rhythm of your day. But in that giving, it forgets its origin. The energy that made your heart beat today may once have warmed a glacier, may once have danced on Saturn's rings. You begin to see how stars fade like tea cools, not by losing their meaning, but by spreading it too far to name. Entropy, again, is not destruction. It is diffusion. It is the gentle unraveling of intense focus into gentle background. It is the hush after laughter, the warmth left in a scarf. You sit quietly now, noticing your own breath. It rises, it falls. It carries heat with it out into the world. Your body, too, is a star in miniature. It fights to keep warm, to maintain structure, to resist entropy, but only for a while. Inside you, countless processes work to preserve order. Molecules moved against gradients, cells dividing with care, thoughts arranging into language. These are not permanent victories. They are brief, exquisite pauses. Entropy does not interrupt them. It frames them. It reminds you that the most beautiful notes are those that fade. You turn your gaze to the stars again, not just the sun, but the giants' blue-white blazes that live fast, die young. Some explode. In supernova, flinging their order into the cosmos, seeding space with elements your bones now carry. Iron in your blood once lived in a star. Gold in your ring came from collision. These materials are born from death, yes, but not in grief. In generosity, entropy does not just cool, it also creates. From the ashes of spent stars come planets. From the diffusion of heat comes weather. From the fall of energy gradients come life's tiniest dancers. ATP in your cells, neurons in your brain. Entropy makes things possible by letting go of what was perfect. You walk now through a dream of the cosmos, a place where everything once burned brighter. And yet, in the softening of light, you find poetry. The dimmest stars live the longest. The slowest fades leave the gentlest footprints. You find comfort in this truth. Not all brilliance needs to last to matter. Not all fire must rage. Even as things cool, they give. Even as they fade, they shape. The warmth of your tea, now gone, remains in the room, on your breath, in the subtle shift of molecules you'll never see. The same is true of everything. The warmth we know, the order we build, is always part of a wider forgetting. But that forgetting is graceful. It does not erase. It transforms. Entropy is not the thief of meaning. It is the river that carries it forward. As you drift towards sleep, you understand. Your mind, your memories, your moments, they are all patterns formed briefly against the tide. They shimmer, they move, and eventually they relax. Just like the stars, just like the cup, just like you. You imagine a time, far from now, when the last ember of heat leaves the universe. Not suddenly, but with patience. No drama, no sound, just stillness. This is called heat death, the final equilibrium. a state where everything has the same temperature, where no more work can be done, where no structures remain. But this does not scare you. You see it now as a completion, the softest lullaby, the final resting breath of a universe that once burned so brightly. You wonder, in this quiet, what stories the fading stars still tell, what secrets the cool dust holds, and gently, almost as if the thought floats in from outside your body, a question hums into your ear. If all warmth spreads and all brightness dims, why does anything shine at all? You are always walking forward, even when you lie. Still, even now, in the hush of your quiet room, with nothing but your breath and the weight of the blanket curling around you, time moves. It's a river you cannot step out of. You may close your eyes, slow your thoughts, even drift into sleep, but the river doesn't stop. Somewhere, milk mixes into coffee and never unmixed. Somewhere, a fallen leaf begins to decay, but will never leap back into green. The direction is not chosen. It simply is. This chapter is about that direction, the arrow that only points one way. Entropy is the silent hand that points this arrow. It doesn't push, it doesn't shout, but it governs. In every corner of the cosmos, in every speck of your day, entropy increases. That is its one rule. The second law of thermodynamics whispers that in any closed system, disorder will grow. This isn't chaos in the way you might imagine a storm, a tantrum, a mess. It's more subtle, more inevitable. It is the slow slide from structure to spread, from arrangement to openness, from memory to forgetting. In this spreading, this soft loosening, lies the very rhythm of time itself. You might wonder, why can you remember yesterday and not tomorrow? Why does a cracked egg never seal itself? Why does your body age and not rewind? It is entropy that draws this boundary. The past is lower in entropy, more ordered, more structured. The future is higher in entropy, more diffused, more uncertain. The present, the fragile ledge you balance on, is the edge of this gradient. You walk toward higher entropy not because you must, but because the universe cannot walk the other way. Think of a sandcastle, each grain arranged with care. Towers, arches, moats carved by hand. Beautiful, improbable order. Now the tide rises. A single wave crashes. The walls slump, the towers sag, the moat fills. No one planned this destruction. The sea did not design it, and yet it happens. Every grain moves toward a more probable place, not because they want to, but because that is where there are more ways to be. There is only one way for a castle, to be perfect, but infinite ways for it to be ruined. Entropy counts those ways. Now think of your tea cooling beside you. At first, steam dances off the surface. The cup is warm against your hands. The molecules inside jitter with heat, bumping and bouncing with energy. But left untouched, it cools. The warmth drifts away, spreads into the air, lost to the room. The tea never reheats itself. That would require all those tiny particles to collide just right, all at once, perfectly reversed. It's not impossible in a strict sense, but so wildly unlikely that it may never happen in the age of the universe. Entropy favors what is probable, and the probable is spread. Inside your body, this law lives, too. Your cells repair, replicate, rebuild, but only for a while. With each breath, you bring in energy and push out heat. You are a temporary island of order in a sea of unfolding. Life resists entropy, but cannot escape it. The order you hold is always slipping through your fingers, like sand in a quiet hourglass. You hold it a while, but never forever. Even memory fades, synapses wear down, and the sharpness of yesterday blurs into soft light. But don't fear this arrow. It is not an enemy. It gives time its shape. It gives meaning to before and after. It allows music to have rhythm, stories to have plot, and sleep to follow waking. Without it, everything would happen at once or nothing at all. A world without entropy's arrow would be still, timeless, motionless. You know what matters only because you are traveling this one-way road. The past gathers behind you, the future unfolds ahead, and in the middle you are present. Even the stars obey. In their hearts, hydrogen fuses into helium, releasing light and heat into space. That light travels outward, never in the fusion that fuels suns, pushes against gravity, holds the balance for a while, but only a while. Eventually, even stars run down. They swell into giants, collapse into remnants. Their energy, once focused, becomes scattered, not destroyed only, diffused. The universe keeps the books. It does not lose energy, but it forgets the form it once held. And so the universe ages, not in years, but in entropy. Galaxies pull farther apart, stars burn through their fuel, clouds of gas thin out into vacuum. The pattern of the cosmos unwinds like a spool left rolling. It's not a fast ascent, it's gentle, whispered, but it is one-directional. The universe grows older by forgetting how it once was. Memory, in this sense, is a kind of resistance, a fragile flame against an encroaching fog. The arrow of time is not just in stars and sand. It is in language, in sound, in breath. Think of a song. You can play it backward, but it doesn't sound right. The melody unravels. The emotion drains out. Forward has shape. Backward is broken. Your ears and mind know the difference. This is because the arrow lives in you, in the friction of your footsteps, in the fading warmth of your skin, in the quiet decay of things once new. Even as you rest, entropy moves through you like wind through grass, soft, steady, and unseen. Time's arrow also defines stories. A tale only makes sense because it begins and ends. The order of events, the cause and effect, these are entropic truths. The villain cannot be defeated before the conflict begins. The seed does not bloom before it roots. You live inside stories, and stories live inside the arrow. Without it, there is no tension, no unfolding, no meaning in sequence. This law does not just govern physics, it governs experience. And yet, there are places, tiny, strange places, where the arrow wavers. In the realm of the quantum, particles sometimes dance backward, equations run both ways. The rules seem to blur. But even there, on average, entropy rises. The small flickers do not reverse the tide. They shimmer briefly, then dissolve into the general drift. Time keeps its course. Even when it pauses, it remembers which way to fall. You may wonder then, what if we could reverse it? What if a machine, a thought, a force could lower entropy? Could we step back into yesterday, rebuild the broken egg, unmake the wrinkle in time? But to undo entropy is not just to fix a thing, it is to undo every ripple it caused. Every molecule moved, every photon escaped, every echo heard. To rewind the arrow would be to unmake the entire wake it leaves behind. It is not a step back. It is a total reversal of reality. So you rest in its path, not as a prisoner, but as a traveler. Time carries you. Entropy guides you, not with harshness, but with inevitability, and in that flow you find rhythm. Sleep follows waking, winter follows fall, memory dims, but it is replaced with newness. Forgetting is not loss, it is space, made for becoming, and in that becoming, the universe gently turns its page. But you are not just watching this from a distance, you are made of it. Your body holds its own fragile order, cells working against the tide to repair, to remember, to rebuild. But slowly, entropy whispers its lullaby. Skin grows thin. Bones lose density. Thoughts take longer paths through the brain, not out of cruelty, but out of law. And yet, you endure. You live within the unraveling, and in doing so, you give it meaning. There's a paradox in how memory exists at all. The past should dissolve completely, and yet here you are, remembering your first walk to school, the voice of someone long gone, the scent of a place you once called home. Your neurons hold order, like tiny castles against the tide, rewiring themselves to recall, to relive. But these memories are not frozen, they shift. Each time you recall them, they soften, change, blur at the edges. Entropy is inside the remembering, too. You walk through a forest and see the same laws in play. A fallen tree slowly returns to soil. Leaves curl and crumble, feeding the roots of new growth. Nothing is wasted, only changed. Even rot is a form of release. The molecules that once held bark and branch are returning to the wider pattern, becoming part of something else, something equally fleeting. Entropy is not an end, but a change of costume. Entropy, in truth, is what gives direction to time. Without it, time would be meaningless, a flipbook of static frames. No before or after. The increase of entropy is what separates yesterday from today. It is the arrow, the one that only points one way. You cannot uncrack an egg, cannot return smoke to a candle, cannot unmix the cream from coffee. You cannot become unborn. These are not tragedies. They are the costs of movement, of existing in time's current. Even light remembers this journey. A beam of light, leaving a distant star, carries information about where it came from, but by the time it reaches your eyes, some of that message has faded. Its colors stretch, its energy softens. The universe has expanded beneath it. The road is longer now than it was when the journey began. You are always receiving echoes, softened by the spaces in between. Still, you try to preserve. You write journals. You take photographs. You pass down stories. But even language erodes. Meanings change. Books fade. The voice that once read to you as a child grows silent, replaced by your own. What endures is not the exactness, but the effort, the act of remembrance itself. To fight entropy is to light a small candle in a room that slowly darkens. The flame will not last forever, but while it burns, it warms. Entropy is not sad. It is honest. It tells the truth about change, about fragility, about how every act of creation must eventually become part of something else. But from that very impermanence comes wonder. You cherish a moment because it will not return. You love someone harder because you cannot keep them unchanged. You feel awe not just at what exists, but at how briefly it stays. Think of the universe, not as breaking down, but as blooming in reverse. A firework after its burst, a melody after its final note. You are within that unfolding, still alive, still aware, still glowing. Entropy holds you, but it does not rush. It waits. It unwinds. With patience. And even as it does, you breathe, you notice, you give thanks. Somewhere, stars are still forming. Ice is still crystallizing. Order is not absent, only outnumbered. There are still patterns, snowflakes, spiral galaxies, strands of DNA. Entropy does not erase beauty. It reframes it, makes it rare, makes it worthy of pause. And so you pause now, listening to the quiet rhythm of the world loosening around you and within you. And you wonder, entropy governs everything. Is anything ever truly lost? Or do the pieces just move on into other stories, other forms, other dreams? Perhaps forgetting is not an end, but the beginning of something else that has yet to remember. In the silence that follows, you feel the soft pull of the next question, forming a question not of loss, but of connection. You lie, still as warmth spreads through you, a soft tide lapping at the edges of your awareness. Somewhere deep in your chest, your heartbeat thuds like a metronome ticking through time. The warmth you feel is not only comfort, it's communication. Your body, your breath, the mattress beneath you, the air around your skin, they're all speaking in the quiet language of heat. And though you can't hear the words, your body understands. This is a story told in temperatures, a language spoken by the slow diffusion of warmth from places of plenty to places of need. And in this quiet shifting of energy, something else moves to dash entropy. Heat has a memory, not a perfect one, not a sharp-edged film reel of precise moments, but a soft echo of what was. When a comet strikes a surface, when two atoms collide, when your palms rub together and glow with gentle friction, the heat that spreads outward is the leftover signal of a moment that once was. It's a message, but it's incomplete, because as heat moves, it forgets, it blurs. It does not carry structure forward, it carries only the tendency toward disorder. Like an ink blot sinking into a page, heat loses the details of its origin the further it spreads. This is the essence of entropy, the tendency of systems to drift from order to chaos, from clarity to haze. In the early universe, everything was hot blazingly, evenly, magnificently hot. So hot, in fact, that there was almost no differentiation between one point and another. The cosmos was a nearly perfect uniform sea of heat and light, so dense and smooth that no memory could exist within it. Paradoxically, this extreme temperature had very low entropy, because order, in this case, didn't mean coldness, it meant uniformity. There were no gaps in the pattern, no cracks through which history could leak. But then, slowly, the universe began to cool, and in the cooling, structure formed. Stars ignited, galaxies spun, planets gathered around suns. Memory became possible, because difference became possible. And where difference grows, entropy begins its work. You see it in your tea as steam rises from the cup, curling into the air. At first the steam is dense, its shape tightly held, as if remembering the water it left behind. But higher into the air it diffuses, fading into a mist, then into nothing. The heat escapes upward, moving toward the cooler room, seeking equilibrium. In this way, heat is always looking to equalize, to even things out. But in doing so, it erases contrast, and with it, clarity. That's what entropy really is. Not the destruction of matter, not the decay of atoms, but the loss of distinction. The slow, relentless melting of pattern into blur. In your body, this plays out in subtle but constant ways. The warmth in your fingertips is a signal of countless metabolic processes. Every breath you take converts oxygen into energy and releases a whisper of heat into the world. And though it seems like nothing, that whisper is an irreversible mark on the cosmos. The universe knows you were here, not in the crisp clarity of a footprint in sand, but in the faint diffusion of warmth in air molecules. The memory is there, but only briefly, because heat forgets, and entropy ensures that all footprints, even the ones made of fire, will fade in physics. This forgetting is described with cold precision. Heat energy moves from regions of high temperature to regions of lower temperature, increasing the total entropy of the system. But you don't need formulas to feel this. You know it in your bones, in your blankets, in the way the sun sets and the day cools. The passage of heat is also the passage of time, and time, like heat, moves in one direction. You never see cold rush in to make a hot room hotter. You never see steam curl back into a cup. The arrow points forward, and entropy is its compass. Even stars obey this law. When they burn, they radiate light and heat into the void. That light travels across vast distances, reaching us as sunrises and moonlit reflections, but the energy that leaves a star is energy that cannot return. The star forgets a little of itself with every photon it releases. Over billions of years, this forgetting becomes complete, and the star dies. Its heat has spoken its last story. In this way, the universe teaches us that heat is not eternal. It is always on its way to elsewhere, leaving behind less than it began with. Yet, in this forgetting, there is a strange kind of grace, because while heat does not preserve the full picture, it preserves motion. A comet heats the air and earth around it not to remember its shape, but to record its impact. A child's hand on a window leaves a fading warmth that speaks of presence, not of identity. We know someone was here. We know something happened. Entropy doesn't erase everything, it softens. It turns sharp memories into impressions, outlines, silhouettes, the warmth of yesterday's sun on a stone bench, the cooling echo of laughter in a room. These are the soft memories of heat. Your own memories work similarly. Inside your brain, neurons fire and patterns emerge. But even memory, in the biological sense, is built on chemistry and energy. Long-term memories are more like rewritten stories than recorded tapes. Every time you recall something, you reshape it slightly. You smooth its edges or shift its tone. In this way, your mind mirrors the second law of thermodynamics. It moves forward. It forgets with grace. It makes peace with the imperfection of recollection, because to remember perfectly would be to stop time. Nothing in this universe is allowed that stillness. In science labs, researchers study heat engines, devices that convert thermal energy into work, but no engine is perfect. There is always some heat that slips away, wasted, untransformed. That loss is entropy, too. Even in our most carefully designed systems, even in the clean lines of engineered brilliance, the universe whispers, not all can be kept. And so we adapt. We build machines that work not by avoiding entropy, but by dancing with it. We accept the loss and design around it. That is how we progress, not by resisting nature, but by understanding it intimately. In ancient times, fire was magic. It still is, in a way, because when you light a candle, you are not merely creating light. You are witnessing entropy in motion. The wax burns, the heat spreads, and in that flickering glow, order is converted into warmth and light and eventual ash. Yet that light comforts you. It tells stories. It gives meaning, and perhaps that is the heart of the matter. Entropy may erase the perfect past, but it also births experience. It is not the villain of physics, it is the painter of moments. Now, as you drift in this warmth of thought, you realize that nothing in the universe is truly lost. It's just spread out, diffused into places where it no longer forms a single story, but countless whispers. The heat of stars becomes the light of galaxies. The breath you exhale tonight might, in some far time, warm the skin of a child yet to be born. And while that heat won't carry your name or your memory, it will carry your motion, your warmth, your mark, and so you sleep, surrounded by the quiet sigh of entropy, the slow, gentle forgetting that is not cruel but inevitable. You listen to the stillness that follows heat's release, the calm after motion, the hush that settles on all things. Yet even as heat escapes, the universe doesn't pause. It prepares to shift again, to change again, to rise in new complexity even as old patterns fade. What comes after the soft retreat of heat? Perhaps, in that space, another form of memory begins, and in that cooling silence, you begin to wonder. If entropy forgets structure, then how does complexity still arise? You sit still, wrapped in the hush of night, while your thoughts drift into the quiet currents of time. Not time as you know it, not the ticking of seconds, not the measured hum of clocks, but the long breath of the universe. A breath that begins warm and full of potential, then exhales into increasing disorder. You sense it not only in distant galaxies, but in your cooling tea, your scattered memories, the fading echo of a bell that once rang clearly and now is just silence. This journey is about that silent unraveling, about how the ordered becomes the unraveled, how, with each passing moment, the universe steps further from symmetry. This chapter is not just about science, it's about the slow exhale of everything. You begin with a simple image, a deck of cards, perfectly stacked, red and black alternating, numbers rising in tidy order. You shuffle them once, then again, then again. What was once precise becomes tangled. There are more ways to be disordered than there are to be arranged. Entropy, the measure of disorder, always finds company in the possible, and so with each shuffle, the odds tilt toward chaos. The order slips. The pattern forgets itself, and time quietly moves forward. But this is not just a metaphor of cards. This is the fate of stars and stones, breath and biology. The laws of physics, every one of them, allow for time to run backward. If a video of billiard balls crashing and scattering were reversed, you wouldn't notice. The math works both ways. The mirror universe would obey the same equations. But entropy is different. Entropy remembers the arrow. When the cue ball breaks the triangle and the balls roll into a mess, that mess won't ever neatly reassemble on its own. That's the truth entropy tells. The future is always more jumbled than the past. You carry that truth inside your body. Every breath you take draws in air molecules from a world already in motion, already mixed by winds and tides and time. Your cells burn fuel, creating heat, breaking chemical bonds in a dance that leans toward disorder. Life, ironically, builds complexity by feeding on this slide. Organisms don't violate entropy, they survive because of it. They take in energy and expel waste, creating pockets of order within a wider ocean of increase. Even your thoughts, your memories, are held together against that tide, and slowly, piece by piece, they fade. Not because you forget, but because forgetting is what time is. You imagine now a child's sandcastle on a beach, tidy towers and careful walls decorated with seashells, perfectly sculpted by small hands. The tide is still distant and the air is warm. But you know what will happen. Wind will lift grains. Waves will pull at the base. One shell will slide. A wall will crumble. Not all at once, but slowly. The castle doesn't explode. It forgets itself. It becomes sand again. The child is gone, and the beach remembers only the feel of the waves. Entropy is not destruction. It is the smoothing out of memory, the relaxing of form, the soft settling of difference into sameness. What once stood apart becomes part of the whole again, now. Consider the universe as it once was, dense, hot, and incredibly ordered. In its infancy, just moments after the Big Bang, all matter was spread almost perfectly evenly. It was, strangely, low in entropy, because though energy was high, differences were few, and that gave the universe room to forget, to spread, to cool, to create the intricate galaxies, stars, planets, molecules, minds, all of it possible because order had a long way to fall, and as it fell, it made beauty. Complexity bloomed in the cracks of symmetry. You live in one of those cracks. Your life is stitched from temporary arrangements, fleeting bubbles of improbability where the universe pauses, just long enough to ask questions like this. Entropy doesn't rush. It doesn't shout. It creeps. A glacier melting. A language fading. A library's pages yellowing in the sun. The stars themselves will one day flicker out, leaving behind only husks and heat. A process called heat death, not because it is fiery, but because it is final. No gradients left, no usable energy, no places colder or warmer, just sameness, stillness, the final destination of order's slow slide. But that's not something to fear. It's not a villain creeping through the universe. It's the reason there is anything to begin with. It is what lets stories unfold, what gives birth to time. You turn your gaze inward now, your thoughts to feel this slow slip. What you once knew perfectly, a childhood room, a face you loved, a song that used to play from a kitchen radio, now drifts in haze. You try to remember, and bits come back, but never as sharp as they were. Memory, you realize, is a castle of sand too, built carefully, lived in fully, and then softened by the tide. It's not your fault, it's just how time works. You can feel the warmth of that room, but you can't sit in it. You can hum the melody, but the lyrics are gone. Entropy is not the eraser. It is the soft blur, the feathered edge of recollection, the way dreams begin vivid and end vague. Still, you resist. Humans always do. You take photos, you write things down, you build museums and monuments and stories. You try to hold the shape of things, and that's beautiful. Because even in the face of forgetting, you remember. Even when order slips, you reach. This reaching, this longing, is part of the dance. Entropy may win in the long run, but in the meantime, it fuels the fire of meaning. It gives weight to every fleeting thing. The moment is precious because it won't last, so now, as you lie still and let your breath slow, you realize something soft but profound. Entropy doesn't make life pointless. It makes life poignant. The fact that order fades makes your moments glow brighter. The candle flickers more beautifully, knowing the wind will come. The song is sweeter, knowing it will end. Your heartbeat, steady and rhythmic, is a defiance not of the universe, but within it a temporary bloom in the slow unravel. And you wonder, then, what's next in the unfolding? If order always slips, if memories always blur, if sandcastles always fall, why build them at all? But perhaps that's the secret, not to fight the tide, but to shape the shore while you can. To know the wave will come and still draw the pattern, to love the shape even as it shifts. You let that question drift in your thoughts like fog. The idea that time may not just carry us forward, but fold us back. That perhaps there is something deeper beneath the slip, some rhythm beneath the unraveling, and softly, without conclusion, without answer, you wonder what it might feel like to catch that rhythm and ride it gently into the next thought, the next chapter. Could memory, like heat, be shared? Could order, like breath, move in cycles? Or is there only this falling, this graceful, cosmic forgetting? That's what waits ahead. You exhale slowly, the moment slips, and the story continues. Heat is more than warmth. It is a quiet map of motion, the invisible jiggle of atoms, the whispered energy of particles in restless dance. You lie still, beneath your blanket, yet your body is not still. Every cell within you vibrates gently, passing energy from one molecule to the next, like ripples on a pond. This trembling is not noise. It is order unfolding. It is time written in the language of heat. Imagine you hold an ice cube in one hand and a cup of tea in the other. The cold burns your fingers. The warmth cradles them. But both are part of the same story, a tale told by temperature. Heat flows from the warm tea to the cool air, from your skin to the melting ice. It always moves in one direction, from hot to cold, from energy to calm. Never the reverse. This is not a rule written by chance, but a law carved into the fabric of the universe. It is called the second law of thermodynamics, and it is the secret signature of time. Wherever you look, this law holds sway. Heat spreads. It disperses. It refuses to gather again on its own. And in doing so, it draws the arrow of time. You cannot unmelt the ice. You cannot unboil the water. You cannot step backward through this quiet flow. The universe, too, began in high energy, like tea just poured. And now it cools, not into stillness, but into a slower rhythm. The stars release their warmth into the darkness. Galaxies glow, then dim, and through it all, entropy rises, that gentle measure of how far the warmth has wandered. You picture a room once filled with music and laughter, its air once bright with heat and motion. Now, decades later, the dust rests still. The echoes have gone, the light has faded, and the room, like the universe, has drifted toward equilibrium. Not ruin, just quiet. That quiet is not failure. It is the natural end of movement. Heat has finished its path. It has traveled, shared, dissolved. But there is more, because heat not only drives time, it bends it. Einstein, in his theory of relativity, showed us that time is not a rigid track, but a flexible field shaped by gravity and motion. And where there is heat, there is energy. And where there is energy, space-time curves. A heavy sun warps time. A burning star the seconds that pass near it. If you were to orbit close to a neutron star, where heat and gravity dance in tight spirals, your minutes would slow compared to someone far away. You'd feel normal, but when you returned, the world would be older. Heat and time are entangled, not just metaphorically, but physically. One pulls on the other. Your own life holds this truth in miniature. When you run, time feels quicker. When you wait, it stretches. These are the subjective versions of real phenomena. Your body warms with motion, and in that warmth, your perception of time shifts. Even your emotions carry thermal echoes. Anger burns, love warms, grief chills. Language, instinctively, links time to temperature, rhythm to fire. Now consider a black hole. It is cold, dark, and dense, a place where time slows so deeply that from the outside it appears to freeze. But even there, at the edge of gravity's grip, heat has a whisper. Stephen Hawking showed us that black holes are not entirely black. They glow faintly with what is now called Hawking radiation, a soft warmth that hints at their inner clock. This warmth suggests that even at the edge of forgetting, time and heat still hold hands. In your body, entropy builds, but so does meaning. Your metabolism, the very engine of life, depends on the movement of heat. You eat food not to fill your stomach, but to fuel the molecular vibrations that keep you alive. Your brain runs on tiny charges carried by ions, bouncing like warm marbles inside your neurons. Without heat, there would be no thought, no awareness, no memory of the past, no wondering of the future. The gentle flow of time, shaped by heat, is the reason you are. Yet the more we understand, the more we see how delicate this balance is. Too much heat, and systems unravel. Too little, and life freezes. The earth itself is a thermal cradle. Warmth from the sun, shielded by a thin blanket of atmosphere, keeping the oceans fluid and the forests green. When that balance tilts, when heat is trapped or released too quickly, time speeds up for the systems we know. Forests vanish, glaciers collapse, coral reefs, once ancient, bleach in a matter of years. Entropy does not hurry, but our influence can press the fast-forward button. Still, even as the world warms and changes, the deeper rhythm holds. Time bends gently around every thermal source. In cosmic terms, we are just a flicker. But within that flicker, we glow. We create stories. Music, art, compassion, all born from ordered energy spent against the tide. Heat gives rise to thought, and thought gives rise to time as we experience it. Think of a candle now, flickering beside your bed. The wax softens, the flame dances, the light warms your hand, and slowly the candle shortens. Energy, once stored, is released. Time, once potential, becomes memory. That light is not wasted. It fills the room. It touches the walls. It leaves warmth on your skin and shadow in your thoughts. This is what it means to live in the flow of entropy. To accept that nothing lasts, but everything leaves a trace. And as you lie back, breathing slow, you realize you are not separate from this river. You are part of the warmth. You are the unfolding. Every second you live is borrowed from a larger fire. Every moment of clarity, every connection, every quiet joy, all of them are made of heat, shared and time past. You exist in this shimmering balance, and just before you drift toward sleep, you let one last thought rise like steam. If heat gives shape to time, and time gives shape to memory, could memory, in its own quiet way, bend the fabric of the future? You are not falling, but floating. The air around you stills, and time becomes a current. It does not loop or stall or hesitate. It slides forward, always forward. Entropy is not a scream, but a sigh, the long, slow breath of the universe, forgetting the neatness of its beginning. You see it not only in the galaxy's unwinding or the stars cooling into silence, but in your own thoughts, in the way a teardrop rolls down once and never rewinds, in the way a memory feels like smoke rather than stone. Everything you touch has a history, but not a future already lived. It flows in one direction, from what was arranged to what is scattered. From potential to past, the universe began in order, not like a regimented city, but like a symphony poised on its first note. High energy, low entropy, everything close together, a single inhale of everything that could be, and then release, expansion, cooling, structure giving way to motion, motion giving way to dust. Galaxies formed, yes, and stars, but over time, the sharp edges softened. Stars grew old, burned through their fuel, and exhaled themselves into space. The neatness of beginning scattered like seeds, and in that scattering, time's direction was drawn. You see this too in the simple act of aging. A child's face smooth with symmetry becomes, with grace and years, a face that tells stories in folds and lines. Not decay, but narrative. Not breakdown, but depth. This is entropy as biography. Your own body drifts through time, not in stasis, but in a slow, irreversible unfolding. Cells divide. DNA unzips and recodes and makes small mistakes. And these small errors, they are not failures. They are footprints. They are the path taken once, and only once, by time moving in one direction. Imagine a porcelain cup on a table. It balances, still and perfect. A second later, it is pushed. It falls. It shatters. Pieces scatter outward. You could glue it back together, but never perfectly, never as it was. There are too many possibilities for disorder, and only one for exact order. That imbalance is the asymmetry of time. The cup doesn't jump back onto the table. The shards don't reform. The universe does not rewind. Even in memory, you feel this drift. You can recall the past, perhaps not clearly, but with texture and feeling. You cannot recall the future. Your brain, a network of neurons, crackling with energy, only records what has already passed. The chemical pathways for memory only work one way. Even your mind obeys the arrow of entropy. You can imagine forward, dream forward, plan forward, but you can never remember forward. This asymmetry exists even in the smallest particles. At the level of quantum fields and strange symmetries, time might almost behave like space, free to flip and fold. But when energy moves, when systems evolve, when reality is not isolated in theory but alive in matter, entropy returns to claim its throne. It insists that time is not an illusion. It is a river you can only ride downstream. You watch the stars through your window. Light from one may have taken hundreds, thousands, even millions of years to arrive. You are seeing a past that no longer exists. That light, once hot and bright at its source, has stretched, cooled, and faded. It cannot be reclaimed. Time has moved on, and so must the light. The longer it travels, the less it holds. Information is lost. Clarity dissolves. This is the entropy of the cosmos, a slow erosion, not of meaning, but of precision. And still, despite all this, you do not despair, because in the midst of this drift, there is structure, beauty, emergence, complexity rising from simplicity before settling again into stillness. Just as snowflakes form delicate shapes before melting, just as lives find moments of grace before returning to silence, Entropy allows the temporary to bloom. You are not a violation of the second law. You are a brief, brilliant consequence of it. The irreversible drift is not destruction. It is motion. It is transition. It is the hum that tells you the universe is still singing, even as the notes fade. It is the feeling of warmth leaving a cup, the final echo in an empty hall, the hush after laughter. It is time's quiet companion, reminding you that every moment counts because no moment comes again. And now, in the stillness between thoughts, something stirs, because if entropy is always rising, if everything leans toward forgetting, what becomes of the patterns we hope to preserve? What happens to the codes, the memories, the instructions, written into the atoms of our world? Can any of it remain unblurred in this endless drift? Or is all structure, even the laws we trust, doomed to fade beneath the weight of the universe's slow unraveling? Order feels like a sanctuary, a bowl cradling marbles, a snowflake balancing on the edge of breath, a thought perfectly placed, and yet you've begun to understand that order is not a permanent gift. It is a borrowed moment, a pattern threaded briefly through chaos. What you call order, the alignment of stars into spirals, the warmth of a campfire, the beating of your heart, is not the natural state, but the exception. And slowly, imperceptibly, it slips through the cracks of time. In your body, this slipping is subtle. A heartbeat falters for half a second longer. A strand of DNA repairs itself less perfectly. Proteins fold, unfold, misfold. None of this is sudden. None of it is dramatic. But like the wearing down of footsteps on stone, it adds up. Your mind forgets little things, where you left the keys, the face of someone you loved long ago. These aren't failings. They are entropy at work, softening the sharp corners of order into rounded, indistinct echoes, and you see it in the world around you. A sandcastle built by careful hands is reshaped by a single tide. A tree falls, its ordered structure undone. By wind and time, a building abandoned begins to crumble, dust settling in corners, paint flaking into air. No one breaks it. It simply obeys the quiet law that says all arrangements will one day become unarranged. But here is the strange and wonderful truth. While entropy grows, order is not impossible. It just takes energy to clean a room, to write a sentence, to cradle a child. All these things are acts of order, small resistances against the slide. You spend energy to build, to remember, to hold together. And that energy, once used, is not destroyed, but dispersed. It becomes heat. It becomes motion. It becomes less usable. And so, even in the act of making order, entropy grows. You live in a kind of grace, a moment in cosmic time when the universe is still young enough, warm enough to allow complexity to bloom. Stars still shine, water still flows, life still organizes itself into shapes that breathe, think, and feel. The low entropy state of the early universe gave birth to all this. And now, like a tree rooted in a burning log, the order of today feeds off the difference between then and now. But that difference is shrinking. As stars burn their fuel and galaxies drift farther apart, the universe stretches itself thinner. Energy spreads wider, becomes harder to gather. The great engines of order, stars, planets, minds begin to sputter. This is not apocalypse, it is cooling. A long exhale toward equilibrium. A final flattening of contrast. Scientists call it heat death, a future when everything is even, and therefore nothing can happen. No heat flows, because all temperatures are the same. No thought occurs, because all information is blurred. In this far-off future, order no longer slips away. It simply disappears into sameness. The universe does not end in fire, but in stillness. And yet, as you lie here, listening to your own breathing, you are surrounded by miracles of temporary order. The stars still shine overhead. Your thoughts still spark in patterns of meaning. Language still forms. Meaning still flows from memory to imagination. Even though you know order cannot last, you find beauty in its presence. You feel comfort in knowing that you, a small system in a vast world, are capable of noticing the slipping and still choosing to hold. You could see entropy as erasure, but you might also see it as generosity, because without entropy, nothing would move. No stars would shine, no rivers would run, no songs would end. It is the slipping that gives structure its urgency. A sculpture is precious because it may crumble. A moment is meaningful because it will pass. And so you begin to understand, entropy doesn't just erase. It reveals, it teaches you that time is not a loop, but a river. That holding on is precious because you cannot hold forever. That the act of creating, of forming meaning, beauty, and memory is an act of defiance, a gentle rebellion against the inevitable flattening of all things. Your body is warm because of entropy. Your thoughts move because of entropy. The fire burns, the sun rises, and all things change because the universe allows it. The great paradox is this: only by slipping can time give rise to anything at all. Without the loss of order, there would be no beginning, no story, no you. So here you are, afloat in the middle of time's river. Behind you, the shaped memories of what was. Ahead of you, the blurred potential of what may be. And around you, the gentle unraveling of everything ordered into everything else. You are not lost in it. You are part of it. You are the temporary. Harmony drawn in a single breath of wind across the surface of water. The night deepens. The stars continue to drift apart, their light growing cooler, older, softer. The universe expands, and with it, the space in which entropy can stretch and grow. And yet, here in your mind, in this small moment, order still exists. Thoughts still form. Questions still rise like gentle bubbles to the surface. And one question lingers, suspended like a drop of dew on a spider's web. If order must fade, is there anything the universe can never forget? Some things fade quickly. A footprint in snow. A whisper on the wind. A star's dying breath scattered across time. But not all memory is so easily erased. Beneath the quiet drift of entropy, deeper currents move. Currents that carry not just energy, but story. And you wonder if even galaxies can vanish, what can last? What does the universe remember long after the lights go out? You begin with light because it is the language you know best. Photons from distant stars cross billions of years to find your eyes. They tell you tales of birth and burning, of hydrogen pressed into gold. They are messengers that never age, only stretch, red-shifting with the fabric of space. But even they grow dim. Even they can be swallowed, scattered, forgotten. So you look deeper, to particles and forces, to the bones of physics themselves. And you find traces, not of events, but of laws. A kind of memory etched into the way everything moves. In a universe governed by rules, the conservation of energy whispers, nothing is truly lost. The conservation of momentum murmurs, even direction remembers its path. These are not memories like yours, not stories or pictures or sounds, but deeper ones, structural, relational, like the grooves left on stone by rivers long gone. And yet, not all is preserved. Entropy tells you this. Information, when scrambled too deeply, too finely, can be lost beyond retrieval. A broken glass may remember it was whole in its atoms, but never enough to rebuild itself. The patterns are gone. That's what memory truly is: pattern, structure, relationship. And when those dissolve, memory dissolves too. Still, something else persists. A black hole, once thought to be the universe's great eraser, holds secrets in its silence. When matter falls in, the patterns vanish, but the event horizon swells. It grows not just in mass, but in entropy. This has led minds, like Hawking's, to suggest that information may not be destroyed, only encoded in some way we do not yet understand. The universe may never forget. It may only hide what it remembers in forms we cannot yet read. You picture this, a black hole like a locked diary, its pages inkless but pressed with shape. You may not read the words, but their impression remains. Deep in the skin of space-time, even the evaporation of the black hole, a process so slow it spans ages, might not erase but whisper the data back, bit by quantum bit. If this is true, then nothing ever truly vanishes, only transforms, only shifts its costume in the long theater of time. And so your sense of memory begins to change. It is no longer just your mind holding a face, a name, a sorrow. It is the field itself, the laws, the particles, the symmetries. Memory is not just what is remembered, but what is allowed to be. A proton that lasts longer than the age of stars may carry with it the shape of ancient moments. A cosmic background photon may hum with the voice of the first light. And what of you? What part of you survives the slipping? Not your skin or speech or even your heartbeat, but maybe the patterns, the warmth you gave, the thoughts you passed, the effects you had on others, on matter, on light, on life. In a universe governed by cause and effect, every action ripples. Every breath changes the temperature of the air. Every word shifts another's thought. That too is memory. Not stored in a vault, but echoed in the unfolding. The universe, then, may not archive memory in files or boxes. It may braid memory into consequence, into causality, into the endless web of what follows what. If you strike a bell, the ringing fades, but the air remains changed, slightly, invisibly, permanently. You, too, are a bell the universe has rung. And so, even as entropy rises and structures fall, you are not erased. You are woven. You are part of the tapestry that grows softer, but not blank. Your existence, your moment, becomes part of what the universe is forever. In the far future, when galaxies grow cold and black holes blink out in quiet puffs, what will remain? Not the stars, not the minds, but perhaps the laws, the faint traces of symmetry, the fingerprints of once burning order. Perhaps the final memory is not what was, but what could be no other way. The rules that shaped all possible forms. This too is comfort. You do not need to be remembered like a name or a face. You are remembered in the way a wave remembers. The wind in the way a path remembers footsteps. In the way time itself remembers direction. Now the night is deep and slow around you. Your thoughts drift gently into quiet. The stars above are older than memory, yet they burn still. And within your breath, your warmth, your silence, The universe remembers, not just in data, but in presence. And as you float in the soft dark, a final truth lingers like mist on the tongue. Even if the light goes out, even if the voices stop, the shape of what you were will never quite unmake itself. The universe keeps it, not whole, not clear, but deeply, like a dream it once had and never fully forgot.